What do alien civilizations look like? The Kardashev cycle. Let's watch. You should come check out the thing that I'm creating myself. It's called CalVPN. It's a brand new kind of VPN. It's called a post-quantum VPN, and it can basically protect you from quantum computers. If you're wondering why that might be important, you should come have a read on the website in the description, and you can use it for free right now. There's a free alpha. Only on Windows. We're just doing some testing. So if you have Windows, you can come use our free alpha, our free VPN right now. So come download it.
The observable universe is a big place that's been around for more than 13 billion years. Up to 2 trillion galaxies made up of something like 20,000 billion stars surround our home galaxy. In the Milky Way alone, scientists assume there are some 40 billion Earth-like planets in the habitable zone of the...
in the habitable zone, but we actually think there's probably planets around every single star now.
Their stars. When we look at these numbers, it's hard to imagine that there is nobody else out there.
It'd be pretty interesting if we one day realized that pretty much every star had, even habitable planets. Wouldn't that be a shocker? And then imagine it went even further. Imagine one day we discover that every single star system out there has, worlds that there's life on them, essentially, right? Maybe not intelligent life, but this is potentially something that, actually could be the case.
Change our perception of ourselves forever if we found others. Just knowing that this vast place is...
Not really. I think a lot of the thinkers currently on Earth already are aware there's probably life elsewhere, but sure, maybe it'll help other people catch up.
Is not dead would shift our perspective outwards and could help us get over our irrelevant quarrels. But before looking for our new best friends or worst enemies, we have a problem to solve. What are we actually looking for? In a universe that big and old, we have to assume that civilizations start millions of years apart from each other and develop in different directions and speeds. So, not only are we looking over distances of dozens to hundreds of thousands of light years, we're looking for a civilization ranging from cavemen to super advanced. So, we need a conceptual framework to
Where do you guys think we're in this scale? We're going to find
enable us to think better thoughts that make us able to search better. Are there universal rules that intelligent species follow? Currently,
there has to be, right? Because physics, the physics seems to be the same everywhere in the universe. And you might, if you have a bit of a thinker up there, you might be actually wondering, do we know that? Because that is something that actually we assume. There actually has been, though, some studies to look into this, to actually test whether or not the laws of physics change elsewhere in the universe. And we can do this. So you can actually look. I remember in my 3rd year of my undergrad physics degree, I was involved with the professor, and we did like this, little mock research project. And I was looking at whether or not the fine structure constant changed with gravity. We were trying to look for like an experimental, piece of evidence for, a connection between gravity and electromagnetism. And that would be huge because we actually don't know how gravity even is involved with electromagnetism. Obviously it is, all you have to do is look around, but we really don't understand it. But anyway, so the fine structure constant is essentially like the strength of electromagnetism, okay? It's a bunch of constants all together, and it spits out this really mysterious number that no one understands, and it's kind of at the bottom of physics, 1/137, and it's baffling. You should go look into that. But anyway, you can use that, and you can look at things like quasars, distant galaxies. You can calculate the gravitational potential, around these things, and you can look at whether or not, and we can measure the fine structure constant. How? Well, you can look at the spectra of light, and from that, you can actually calculate the fine structure constant, what it is around those quasars. And there you go. You can look for a correlation, if it changes with increased gravitational potential. But anyway, let's get back to this video. That was a bit of a tangent.
Civilization sample size is only 1, so we may make incorrect assumptions based solely on ourselves. Still, better than nothing. We know that humans started out with nothing but minds and hands that could build tools. We know that humans are curious, competitive, greedy for resources, and expansionist. The more of these qualities our ancestors had, the more successful they were in the civilization building game. Being one with nature is nice, but it's not the path to irrigation systems or gunpowder or cities. So it's reasonable to assume that aliens...
I think that's an assumption right there, you know. I don't see how there's any evidence actually to suggest that. I guess we could look at civilizations that have arisen, and you could look at maybe the Aborigines in Australia. I guess they didn't produce gunpowder or batteries, and they're arguably one of the oldest, if not the oldest, civilization on Earth. And they were pretty one with nature. But I still don't think you can actually say that for sure. I think that's a bit of an assumption.
Able to take over their home planet also have these qualities. And if aliens have to follow the same laws of physics, then there is a measurable metric for progress: energy use. Human progress can be measured very precisely by how much energy we extracted from our environment and how we made it usable to do things. We started with muscles until we learned to control fire. Then we made machines that used kinetic energy from water and wind. As our machines got better and our knowledge of materials expanded, we began to harness the concentrated energy from dead plants we dug up from the ground. As our energy consumption grew exponentially, so did the abilities of our civilization. Between 1800 and 2015, population size had increased 7-fold, while humanity was consuming 25 times more energy. It's based on these facts, scientist Nikolai Kardashev developed a method of categorizing civilizations from cave dwellers to gods ruling over galaxies. The Kardashev scale.
That's an awesome way to put it.
A method of ranking civilizations by their energy use. The scale has been refined and expanded on over the decades, but in general it puts civilizations into 4 different categories. A Type 1 civilization is able to use the available energy of their home planet. A Type 2 civilization is able to use the available energy of their star and planetary system. A Type 3 civilization is able to use the available energy of their galaxy. A Type 4 civilization is able to use the available energy of multiple galaxies. These levels differ by...
Obviously, you can invent other levels to this, right? Like before level 1, there should probably be, lesser levels where rather than just using the energy of your entire planet or, it's a bit unclear, you could, the energy of your local area or something, right? And then beyond, your local group of galaxies, obviously you can go further. You could then extrapolate to what if you could control the energy of dark matter, right? That is a possibility. Currently it doesn't look like you could do that, but we don't even know what it is, okay? And it makes up 80% of the matter in the universe. That would be a significant energy boost, right? If we could somehow harness it. And I don't see why it couldn't be possible. But anyway, beyond that, right, there could be, so that if level 5 is harnessing it, or you could add another level in there, just your local groups of galaxies, you could say, all of the galaxies, right? And then beyond that, level 5, I would say would be like harnessing dark matter, which is, so this level is like a question mark, right? And then beyond that, there would be another question mark for if you could harness this dark energy stuff, which is even more mysterious, which makes up, even more of the universe in terms of total matter and energy content. So that would be even above, right? And then I think there is even a final level. Actually, there could be levels beyond that. It would be if you could control entropy altogether. If you could reverse entropy, well, really, like you could kind of, we don't really understand time, right? But a lot of our current understanding is like, it directly connects to entropy. However, currently we do know time times arrow is actually something fundamentally different to entropy. But let's just, for this, for this argument, imagine time, all it is just completely linked to entropy. Well, if you could control entropy, you could control time. And so, all these previous levels, you're just playing with matter and energy. Imagine a level where you could literally, change time and you could go back and, all right, like you can see that could lead to, you could create sort of universes, right? There's a great little short story called The Last Question by Isaac Asimov that you guys should go read exactly about this, and it will blow your mind the last little bit. But yeah, because currently with our universe, if you extrapolate into the future, it looks like there's going to be this heat death scenario where, equilibrium is reached in terms of entropy, and there's nothing to do anymore, and it's a very boring place. But if you could, somehow control entropy, well, then you could reverse it all, right? And then you could make the universe a fun place again. But okay, beyond that, I said there could be even levels beyond. Well, you've probably heard of the ideas of a potential multiverse. And whilst this is complete, it's not science at the moment. There's lots of people who are trying to make this clear on the internet. That's Sabine Hossenfelder. But I would actually argue it does come under the umbrella of science. There's lots of stuff in theoretical physics which there's no evidence for, but they're ideas which have, some grounded, ideas, I think, within physics. And this multiverse idea, I think, is fine. Sure, we know there's no evidence for it. That's kind of obvious to everyone in this area, but it really could be the case. It's like, look around our universe, how often is there just one version of things? That's not usually the case. There's usually a variety. So why couldn't there be a variety of universes? Why is it just a universe? And if you want to go explore this, there's lots of other videos we've made where we talk about what's potentially beyond the observable universe and how it's probably just more universe, and who knows if it's infinite or not. We really don't know currently. What I'm getting at is this, next level, which there could be, again, a bunch, could be, controlling the multiverse or whatever is beyond, if there is anything beyond. And I think a lot of, people who have some actual scientific literacy, they stop at what we know, all right? I'm just kind of venturing into the speculative territory because you can bet there's going to be extra levels. People are just not willing to speculate. I am, because it's fun, and that's what excites people, so why not? Anyway, let's keep going. We're only 4 minutes in.
By orders of magnitude. It's like comparing an ant colony to a human metropolitan area. To ants, we are so complex and powerful, we might as well be gods. So to make the scale more useful, we need subcategories. On the lower end of the spectrum,
okay, I got a bit ahead of myself.
There are type 0 to type 1 civilizations. Anything from hunter-gatherers to something we could achieve in the next few hundred years. These might actually be abundant in the Milky Way. But a civilization that is not actively transmitting radio signals into space might be as close as our nearest stellar neighbor, the Alpha Centauri system, and we would have no way of realizing they exist. But even if they transmitted radio signals like we do, it might not be very helpful. On an interstellar scale, humanity is practically invisible. Our signals may extend over an impressive 200 light-years, but this is only a tiny fraction of the Milky Way. And even if someone were listening, after a few light-years, our signals decay into noise, impossible to identify as the source of an intelligent species. Today, humanity ranks at about level 0.75. We have altered our planet. We've created huge structures,
Again, just keep in mind this is a huge guess, and these levels are not fundamental. This is all completely arbitrary. I mean, someone just made this stuff up, okay? So don't take it too seriously.
Stripped drain swamps. We've created rivers and lakes and changed the composition and temperature of the atmosphere. If progress continues and we don't make Earth uninhabitable, we will become a full Type 1 civilization in the next few hundred years. Any civilization that becomes a Type 1 is bound to look outside because it's likely that it's still curious, competitive, greedy, and expansionist. The next reasonable step towards transition...
Okay, again, at this point, he's just completely assumed that, other civilizations are going to be like us, which there's really no reason to think that. You really have to clarify every time you say statements with this sort of thing. And if you're confused what I mean us humans have all these, emotions, and who's to say other creatures out there will have the same set of emotions, the same set of motivations, inspirations, or any of, even if those things even exist in the brains of these things, if brains even exist. You can see it gets very messy, all right? But anyway, let's keep watching.
To Type 2 is trying to alter and mine other planets and bodies. This might start with outposts in space, transition to infrastructure and industries near the home planet, move on to colonies, and end with terraforming other planets by changing their atmosphere, their rotation or position. As a civilization expands and uses more and more stuff and space, its energy consumption scales with them. So at some point, they may embark on the largest project a lower Type 2 civilization can take on, harnessing the energy of their star by building a Dyson swarm.
We made a video about Dyson swarms and Dyson spheres, so you should go check that out.
Once this megastructure is finished, energy has become practically unlimited for molding the home system however they see fit. If they are still curious, competitive, greedy and expansionist, and now have complete control over their home system, stellar infrastructure in place, and the energy output of a star, the next frontier moves to other stars.
I don't like how he's calling, just because they're doing this, they must be greedy or something. I think that's a bit simplistic. There's lots of reasons to go and do this sort of thing. And, you can take Elon's approach, where he argues, we need a new philosophy on life, and that should be just to go see what's out there, like go find out why we're here and what's going on. Why that doesn't include anything to do with greed, in my opinion. I want to go see what's out there because I'm curious.
Years away.
And maybe because within us humans, we have this need for adventure.
For a Type 2 civilization, the distance to other stars might feel like the distance between Earth and Pluto does to us today. Technically within reach, but only with immense investments in terms of time, ingenuity and resources. This begins their transition towards Type 3. This step is so far beyond us that it becomes hard to imagine what exactly these challenges.
I think that whole idea of, if a civilization makes it to level 2 and they're gonna to move their star around, that seems really silly. It seems a lot more feasible to create some more advanced technology, power source, and a very small, sort of spaceship that you can get around very quickly at, a high percentage of the speed of light. I just don't see the whole, Dyson swarm moving stars around. And we would see this as well in our galaxy. We could identify this sort of thing. Maybe not just yet, but we could. So at this point in the scale, level 2, we're probably all like complete cyborgs and more AI than human, maybe, right? We could be completely different things. If not, AI, maybe AI is just completely taken over at this point, and it always does. And so they're not going to need to move a star around. They could just like literally launch themselves off in directions. And, you see what I mean? Like, you don't need to go this far. And I think it is actually highly probable that a lot of the things floating around there, which I would classify as life, could just be AI stuff. It's so magical to think about. It must be an absolute forest of, life and AI stuff going on out there. And there's so many small-minded people in our world who just, they don't like to think. So I don't think they really understand how much is probably happening out there. And I'm just talking about in our galaxy, right? There are billions of galaxies out there, and the things going on must be extraordinary. And we are in a galaxy that isn't particularly dense. Imagine being in a globular cluster and there's stars so close to you all over the place. There could be things like Star Wars literally playing out right now. Some, in places in the universe, maybe not in just one place, maybe all over the place. I think that's extremely exciting. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm telling you, this stuff is actually possible.
Solved. Will they be able to find a solution to the vast distances and travel times of hundreds or thousands of years? Will they be able to communicate and keep a shared culture and biology between colonies light years apart? Or will they split into separate Type 2 civilizations? Maybe even different species?
Let's go to speculative territory right now for just a second. Maybe, if we've been put here for a reason, if there's a God, let's assume that situation, right? Maybe the stars are so far apart, right? Deliberately. So by the time you have the technology to cross the stars, you're advanced enough in your morality, in your so much so that when you get and find these other, intelligent civilizations, you don't just destroy them. Like, look at the history of humanity. Whenever we've found other civilizations on other continents, we just destroy them. The more powerful one just wins. So maybe these stars are so far apart deliberately. So, when we can make the voyage, we're friendly. We've come far enough in terms of our intelligence. And you might be confused. Well, I think if you go look at the more intelligent beings already among us on this, that are a part of humanity, I think they're very much like this. They're very hippie-like. So, yeah, I think, who knows? That really could be the case. Things could be set up in all kinds of ways like that. And people don't often like to speculate like this stuff, as I said before, but why not? Who cares?
Are there deadly challenges between the stars? So the closer a species gets to Type 3, the harder it becomes to fathom what it might actually look like. They might discover new physics, may understand and control dark matter and energy, or be able to travel faster than light. We might be unable to grasp their motives, technology...
Obviously faster than light, well, I guess it is possible. Everything's possible, but, like we've talked about in other videos, wormholes are a way around that. You should go check out the wormhole video.
And actions. Humans are the ants, trying to understand the galactic metropolitan area. A high Type 2 civilization might already consider humanity too primitive to even talk to. A Type 3 civilization might feel about as like we feel about the bacteria living on the anthill. Maybe they wouldn't even consider us conscious or our survival relevant. We could only pray that they're nice gods. But the scale doesn't necessarily end here. Some scientists suggest there might be Type 4 and Type 5 civilizations whose influence stretches over galaxy clusters or superclusters, structures comprising thousands of galaxies and trillions of stars. Ultimately, there might be a Type Omega civilization, able to manipulate the entire universe and possibly others. Type Omega civilizations might be the actual creators of our universe for reasons beyond our comprehension. Maybe they were just bored. As flawed as this classification may be, this thought experiment is already telling us interesting things. If our ideas about the nature of species that form interstellar civilizations is sort of correct, then we can be pretty sure that there are no civilizations of Type 3 and beyond near the Milky Way. Their influence...
I highly, no, that is not true, because if they're that far advanced, how can we assume that we'd just be able to see them? They could be, completely using dark matter and dark energy to do things. And that would be invisible to us, right? That's why we call it dark matter. It doesn't interact with electromagnetism. So we wouldn't be able to see it, right? They could be, this is hugely speculative right now, but they could be around us, and just made out of dark matter, and we actually wouldn't know them.
Would in all likelihood be so all-encompassing and their technology so far above our own that we couldn't miss them. The galaxy should flash with their activity in thousands of star systems. We should be able to see or detect their artifacts or movements between different parts of their empire.
Maybe the reason why we don't see aliens or, some huge advanced civilization in our galaxy is because once you get to this step of unlocking dark matter, you just, your species becomes invisible. So we've got that, and then there's the AI scenario. So you can see why you shouldn't assume just because we're looking around, we don't see any, signs. Again, we've barely looked, so keep that in mind. But yeah, why are we shouldn't assume so much. We need to be more humble. We're just starting to look out among the stars, and our techno bubble is 200 light years in diameter. That's nothing, man. Like the galaxy is 100,000 light years. Then you've got a huge void between us and the nearest big galaxy, 2.5 million light years. That's a big difference, right? So it's just crazy.
Even if a Type 3 civilization did exist in the past and died a mysterious death, we should be able to detect some of the remnants of their empire.
Again, I don't agree with that whatsoever. Who's to say that, dark matter halos are not the remnants of ancient civilization? We just can't know anything like this. So I'm really disagreeing with him here heavily.
When scientists looked, they didn't find remnants of harvested stars, decaying mega...
We have barely looked. We only have tools coming online now that can potentially detect even Dyson spheres and those sorts of things. You can bet we're going to be looking for these things. So we've barely looked, and everyone should prepare for what could, eventuate. With JWST, we're going to be able to, actually scan the atmospheres of exoplanets for, actual, stuff that could be a sign of life. Okay, so you could find out within the next year that alien life exists on alien worlds. Literally in the next year, it's possible. So
the structures or scars of great interstellar wars. So they're very likely not out there and never were.
No.
In a sense, this is very sad.
So Kardashev is very wrong.
Sad, but also very reassuring. It leaves the galaxy to us and others similar to us.
I don't know. I'd rather, be filled with things of all kinds. Like, that would be fun. Diversity is good. But, you know, if we now assume that like life can actually only arise like we have, and maybe it always ends up looking like something like that, like us, we could find aliens, right? And they literally look very much like us because the laws of physics are so constrained. Sort of like the biological soup is so constrained to eventuate in something with a large brain that sits atop a, you know, bipedal creature, and it has all kinds of similarities to us. That really could be the case. Would be pretty interesting as well.
So the most promising civilizations to look for may be somewhere in the spectrum from type 1.5 to type 2.5. They wouldn't be too advanced to understand them and their motives. They may have finished their first megastructure.
Again, assuming we could understand other creatures' motives is a gross, you know, overestimation, because who's to say, I'm just going on about the same stuff here, but who's to say their brains evolved in the same way ours did? I don't think that makes much sense to assume that, because that really depends on the environment, your food chains and ecosystems and all sorts of stuff.
And they might be in the process of moving stuff between stars and transmitting enormous amounts of information into space by accident or on purpose. They would probably also look to the stars and look for others. Then again, maybe we've got it all wrong. Maybe progress to type 2 does not mean expanding outwards, and humanity is still too immature to imagine otherwise. For now, all we really know is that we haven't seen anybody yet, but we've only just started looking. Until we finally find friendly super aliens and can ask them to explain the rules of the universe to us, most of us have to make do with learning stuff ourselves. Whether you're going back to school, leaving home for the first time, or if you're just entering a new phase in your life, our shop is stocked and ready for
all right, go check out his shop because he makes great videos. But anyway, that'll do for that video, guys. Make sure you go check out KelVPN, the free alpha. You can go download it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Leave a comment for something you want me to watch. I'll check it out.